Hey, you guys. So we're going to go live on Instagram. All right. Looks like my whole chair is crooked, but I feel straight. How does that work? All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are still talking about inflammation today. I hope the wind doesn't blow too hard. I swear to God, that was like no wind the entire morning. Felt like a sauna. And then as just we're about to go live, of course, it has to stop blowing. So, welcome everyone. And I hope you find today's topic interesting because I feel like inflammation is really at a core at so many challenges that we have. And I want to specifically talk about how it impacts your hormones as well. But most importantly, I want to help you figure out what is your cause of inflammation because that's really, really important. You know, I just can't tell you exactly what to do to reduce inflammation. Just like that because everybody has different inflammatory reasons why they're inflamed, right? And there's a couple of things that is so tightly correlated with inflammation. That is your weight, it's your hormonal balance, how you sleep. It affects like really almost every facade of your life. So I just want us to pay a little bit more attention to it. I also want to show you a picture that I actually took, and I'm gonna post that. I've never done this before, the before and after, and I never thought, oh, I'm gonna be this person who's gonna be doing the before and after photos. But I want to show you today just like what a difference it made for me to get rid of my inflammation in my own journey and what this looks like. So we're gonna be sharing that later. Photo from 2017 and photo from now. And of course, my phone has to ring and it's blowing. I hope it's not going to start raining. All right. So post your questions in the meantime about inflammation. And what do you think is causing your inflammation? So let me give you a rundown what we're going to be covering today. The agenda for today is go over what exactly is what are the signs and symptoms of inflammation. How do you know if inflammation is impacting your hormones? How does it impact your hormones? And that's really, really interesting, especially one of them. Meaning, I'll explain why is it that you might be taking hormones and still feeling like you are deficient, like what's going on here. We're going to cover the main sources of inflammation. So this is really where I'm hoping to create some awareness so you can really tune in and find out what is your cause of inflammation. And then most importantly, then we can move on to how to reduce inflammation. And what are some of the potentially nutrients that you can add on to your protocols in order to lower inflammation. Okay, and then we do open Q&As. Sounds good? So let's post your questions. Yeah, so many of you are posting already what you know about inflammation. So just stay tuned for that. So let's just talk about symptoms first. And that's really kind of interesting. It's it can be anything from, it could manifest, right, in the form of weight gain. So that's a very common one. And are you guys ready for my photo? I mean, might as well talk about this and just show you. This is so weird because I never thought I was going to be this girl. And mind you, I don't have a photo of me being 300 pounds, right? And so just want to set the context. Putting on weight was never my thing, right? So meaning like it was not my first symptom. Like even when I had Hashimoto's or low thyroid function, the weight was not like a first symptom that I would experience. For me, it was always been more about pain, problem sleeping, mental functions like, going into anxiety, that kind of stuff will always be my Achilles heel, rather, or digestive issues, but never weight itself. And so for my weight to drastically change like that, it was a big deal. For some people, it's like you can put on weight, like, just looking at food kind of a thing, right? Well, not really, but you know what I mean. So I want to show you, I think I can do present. I can share my screen in a specific window. Okay, so can you guys see this? Jen, can they see it? Okay. So this is the photo on the left. That's me in 2017. This was taken at a book Photoshop, a photo shoot. And when I was just about to publish my first cookbook, Cooking for Hormone Balance, that's available on Amazon. And you can see like how puffy my arms are. And all the photos were taken like with very loose clothes, and my face is kind of puffy. I was dealing with some probably additional 20 pounds over. So again, I want to emphasize 20 pounds over for me would be like 40 pounds for a person who has a tendency to put on weight. So I don't have a photo of you of like me being 400 pounds because I've never gotten to that point. But it's just like, look at the comparison to me in 2024. So this was taken literally like a couple of weeks ago at a campground, right? Completely different body. And I don't have pictures of me in 2017 in bikinis because I probably didn't want to take one. But I can tell you right now that I definitely did not have the definition that I have now. Okay, so the purpose of showing you this is because I really took inflammation really seriously, and I was asking myself, what is causing my inflammation? After all, I've got my diet dialed in, I've got sleep dialed in, I'm taking supplements that are helping me with managing my inflammation. I've got my hormones dialed in, also I thought. And so, that's one of the things I want to help you uncover today of where else could inflammation be coming from. And in my case, it was specifically mold and parasites. So let's talk about this in just a second when we go through the causes. So let's go over the list. So how do you know you are inflamed? So belly fat, weight gain, those are some of the chronic ones, classical ones, I should say. Chronic pain. When you're in chronic pain, especially the joints and muscles, kind of a pain, right? Accelerated aging, like somebody who looks really quite tired all the time. Different hormonal problems, so including, and this is actually I would say especially when it comes to insulin resistance. So insulin resistance, because of high blood sugar levels, can be extremely inflammatory for the body. Autoimmunity, including Hashimoto's disease, not surprising there. It can manifest in form of allergies. And so one of the things, if you are subscribed to our newsletter, one of the things that we are saying now in our newsletters is that if you don't want to have allergies in the spring, start working on it now. Start lowering inflammation now, because then you're going to be enjoying an allergy-free season without popping any drugs and feel way better. Because even with drugs, like there's so many things that are not great about it, right? Like you're feeling dizzy, some people can't drive, and it only helps to a certain degree. All right, digestive problems, cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerative diseases. If you want to test it, then blood tests like a CRP-HS, so C-reactive protein, highly sensitive, has got the HS behind it, so that will be that's a great one. And if it's higher than 3, then it's, that might be a problem. Ideally, you want to be no more than 1 milligram per liter, and that's the measuring marker. So then, of course, elevated blood sugar levels, HA1C, that's definitely my favorite one. And when we say HA1C, I prefer that more from a functional perspective. We prefer to look at HA1C versus just a fasting glucose, because fasting glucose kind of can get wonky depending on what you ate the day before, where HA1C kind of shows you the average for the past 3 months. And the other thing is, remember that when you look at your labs, you want to evaluate them from a functional perspective and not just what the lab is telling you. So for example, HA1C will say, 5.6 is perfectly fine, right? We're actually functional, from a functional perspective, we look at HA1C and say, you know what? A truly healthy person, not a surviving person, right? But like a truly healthy person, you want to be looking at it from like a 5.1 to 5.4. That is the sweet spot. 5.7 will be actually considered pre-diabetic already. If you're talking about fasting glucose, it's the same thing. Your doctor might look at it, it's like, well, you're 97. Oh, well, you just, a step away from being pre-diabetic, but you're not there yet because you're not reaching the 97, 99, for fasting glucose. And that is very, again, we want to be healthy here. We're not here just to go like, oh, I'm not in the diabetes category yet. You don't want to be there. Like, you don't want to be anywhere close to that, right? So healthy blood sugar levels will be actually for fasting glucose, you want to be like the 87, 92 range. That's a healthy range to be in, right? So always look at it from a functional perspective. So those are some of the symptoms. And and one thing I would say, it's like what I experienced also with my weight gain, I felt like I was puffy. Like it wasn't, like in one place that it was depositing. It was just felt like my arms were puffy, my face was puffy, my legs were puffy. It was sometimes hard to take off rings of my fingers. Putting on shoes was kind of difficult. It's an interesting inflammation causes is a weight gain that's kind of like it can be systemic as well. Okay, so those are some of the signs and symptoms of inflammation. And let's now talk about how inflammation impacts your hormones, because I want you guys to know this because it impacts so many other things in your body. But because I do hormones, like I kind of want to present it from a perspective that a lot of people don't talk about. Like, probably you have heard in the health circles about like, inflammation can be, how it impacts your weight or your blood sugar levels or depression or brain function. All of that is absolutely correct. But I want to just hone in on the hormones. One interesting, I think, very interesting phenomenon is the fact that when you're inflamed, the receptors in the cells kind of shut down and are not open to receiving hormones. So let me explain this. So every cell in the body some of them have more receptors than others for different hormones. So that cell will literally have these little doors that let the hormones in to do its work on the nuclear level, right? So nucleus level. So whether it's like progesterone, estrogen, DHEA, testosterone, right? They all come in through glucose. They all come in through those doors. Now, here's a fascinating thing. When you are constantly inflamed, these little doors shut down. And the phenomenon then will manifest in the form of, this phenomenon will then show up as, oh, I did a blood test. It shows like my thyroid hormone is perfectly fine. Or my doctor's saying my estrogen levels, the progesterone levels are perfectly fine. But guess what? You're having all the symptoms of being deficient. And that is most likely because of inflammation. And even though there's enough of circulating hormone, it's not enough. You are too inflamed to let it go into the cell, into the receptor, attached to the receptor, and do the work that it needs to do. So you feel good, you look good, you think great, and all that. So you sleep well and all that good stuff. So I hope it makes sense. The second way inflammation impacts your hormones is that inflammation is actually a very much of a stress response in the body. So you're jacking up your cortisol levels. When you jack up your cortisol levels, like when you're inflamed, but on the beach, it's like same as you being just constantly stressed out, right? The body just doesn't differentiate between stress emotionally or stress that's physiological, right? So you're releasing additional cortisol that is then creates a lot of havoc in general with all the other hormones. I always talk a lot about that, like it impacts your progesterone, right? And brings it down and causes estrogen dominance and all that good stuff. Lastly, it disrupts the hormonal feedback loop. It basically, the hormones communicate with each other like the way you have a post office and things that get passed on from one note to another until they reach the recipient. Like when you get your a delivery statement of like, oh, it left the depot in Texas and now it's gonna go to New York, right? It shows you like the different points that it reached, right? So the hormones kind of work the same way. And so imagine if that loop is interrupted, they just don't function correctly. And that's unfortunately what inflammation does. One of the famous ways inflammation works is where a person, have you guys heard of leptin resistance? That's one interesting disturbance of the loop mechanism where the hunger hormone just never kicks in, or the satiety hormone never kicks in, or the hunger hormone just doesn't stop. And so typically when you eat, right, and you have enough food, you're like, oh, I feel very nicely satiated. There's a sense of satiety. I'm totally fine. I had my lunch. I'm very satisfied. Thank you. A person who is inflamed, a lot of times that loop mechanism is broken and they go, oh my God, I just had a full lunch or full dinner and I can still eat, right? And that's because of the hormone leptin that is not communicating to the rest of the hormone, to the brain that says, hey, that's enough. You've had your meal, stop eating. So those are three things. So I just repeat, it disrupts your receptors. So the hormone can get into the cell and do its work. Number two, it releases additional cortisol. And number three, it disrupts your whole hormonal feedback loop mechanism that just creates a lot of hormonal havoc. So I hope this is helpful. Let me, Jen, why don't we go over to some questions, and then we can maybe jump in on a few things there. Okay, so I see a lot of questions on Instagram, so let's jump over to Instagram here. So one of my questions was, love the ocean behind. How do you know? Maybe I'm doing a fake background. No, I'm not. I'm actually at the ocean. Yeah. Let's see. So thank you for all your kind comments about the ocean. What's the best way to manage food-caused inflammation? Yeah, so let's talk about that in just a second. Can you get inflammation from anything other than foods? Absolutely, yes. And stay tuned for that one. I'm going to cover that in a second. My PCOS and insulin resistance are causing my inflammation. So wellness from within already knows that. So that's great that you know. I'm curious, what are you going to do to address that and reverse it? And then what was the name of the test you mentioned? So it's called CRP, C-reactive protein -HS, highly sensitive. That's the one I mentioned. How long does detoxing from mold does it take for weight loss? So, well, we want to detox. I would say we want to detox first, and then kind of the weight will drop off as a natural result of that. I've been doing my protocol for 3 months, and then I had to stop because I came to Mexico. So I decided I'm not gonna, because it is a pretty strict regimen. And so I decided to not continue, and then I'm going to continue when I get back to the States in June. So overall, I'm planning to do it for 6 months total. But even doing the 3 months, it showed amazing results. And by the way, just to let you guys know, Dr. Beth O'Hara is going to be with us next Wednesday on the 6th. So stay tuned for that. She is the practitioner who designed the mold protocol for me. So I know we had a lot of questions and interest about mold. So I invited her to speak and share with us a little bit more about just everything you want to know about mold. And I'll show you my experience of doing her protocol. So, and then some resources of what you can do to help yourself. What happens when your antibodies come out abnormal, but your T3 and T4 are within range? Yeah, so that's exactly what I had happen. You were talking about the thyroid hormones, right? And the antibodies for Hashimoto's. So that's an interesting question. And that's exactly what happened to me. So you don't want to be just looking at labs. You also want to be looking at your symptoms and how you feel. I'm a good example of that. I had antibodies that were through the roof, and T3 and T4 within ranges, even functional ranges. So let me just back up a little bit. You want to be looking at functional medicine range for healthy thyroid. And if you go to our website, hormonesbalance.com, there's a ton of resources we have that talks about ranges for thyroid, functional ranges for thyroid. So first of all, you want to use those ranges. Number two is that even if you are if you're still within those functional ranges and you're not feeling great, that's what matters. Because when you work with a physician on this, you should be treating yourself, your symptoms, and not the labs. Okay, so this is really important. We talk about inflammation in menopause as well. So I mean, inflammation it's no different in menopause than it is in other times of our life. And I feel like the inflammation is even easier to experience when we go into menopause, because our estrogen starts dropping, our progesterone starts dropping even faster. And one of the ways I'm going to talk about is for you to balance out your hormones is to raise your progesterone levels, right, to a healthy level. So I feel like menopause, we're just getting an even hotter hit when in menopause inflammation becomes even worse. Amy is saying I put on 20 pounds since drinking lots more coffee than used to. I drink it black. So is this possible? I mean, how do you know it's just drinking coffee, not something else? it's interesting about coffee because people who are proponents of coffee or in denial about coffee will cite all this research about like how amazing coffee is, and I have no doubt there is a lot of benefits of doing coffee. And there is also the other side of it that not all coffee is the same. We are all bio individually different. Everybody can be responding different to a food, or an herb, or supplement even. And so you need to honor that. And so why not just get off coffee if you know that's what's causing it, and switch to like something like black tea or green tea. Grain free. Someone is saying, okay, cool. Has it helped you? What tests to see if you're estrogen dominant? Take a look at my website. This is a different topic. I can talk about this for like another half an hour. So take a look at our website, hormonesbalance.com, and there's a ton of resources about estrogen dominance. It's one of my big pillars of what I do. What is the best way to deal with digestive inflammation? Okay, so all right, so let's just talk a little bit about solutions here rather what's causing inflammation. Because once you know what's causing inflammation, then it's kind of like the solution kind of unravels itself, right? Because it's like, oh, every time I drink, like one of you said, right? I drink coffee and then I feel maybe inflamed. Well, stop drinking coffee, right? So it could be something as simple as that. And sometimes you need to be just mentioned. You be told that. I remember my friend saying that she was seeing a therapist and saying to her how agitated she was with her squeaky bed. And the therapist said to her, why don't you just go and get in that new bed? And she's like, yeah, I didn't think about that one. And my friend is really smart, right? So sometimes you need to be told the simplest of things. And we all need a little bit reminder on that. Okay, so the biggest first cause of inflammation, I covered that in my social media, is diet. I find that it is that whole combo of gluten, dairy, highly processed foods, excessive sugar intake without realizing how much sugar you're consuming. That is one huge contributor towards your inflammation. And I have a feeling like you guys really know about that. If you're still in denial about it, you're like just, dabbling and just wetting your toes in this space, I would suggest when you're ready, physically, emotionally, logistically, set yourself up for success at your home, meaning throw away everything else, just, do your thing, is just get on the anti-inflammatory diet. Both my cookbooks, Cooking for Hormone Balance and Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, both are available on Amazon, and they are based on an anti-inflammatory way of eating, but it's full of nutrients, it's full of colors, full of phytonutrients, but it doesn't have all of those foods. And so anyway, learn how to do the anti-inflammatory diet as your starting point. The other thing is a lot of people go like, oh, I am already on a healthy diet, right? And so I wanna just preface it by saying it can really be a trap being in the space where we all have our blind spots. I had my blind spots. I was in total denial about having mold. And and it's like I'm eating already very healthy. And then when I used to work with private clients, I remember seeing a person's food journal and her snacks, and then asking her to calculate how much sugar she was eating. And it was a major shocker for people to realize that they were doing 60, 70, 80, 100 grams of sugar every day. And if you want a physical representation of it, just take the grams of sugar you're consuming and take a look at everything: your coffee, your creamers, your dressing, the juice that you are buying, right? Blah, 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 and just divide it by 4. And that gives you the idea of how many teaspoons you're consuming. So someone who, for example, is consuming 80 grams of sugar, that's actually 20 teaspoons of sugar. That's hell of a lot of sugar, And I'm not talking about just added sugar. I'm talking about even sugar that's found in the food. Okay, so that's about diet. Get it dialed in, can make a huge difference. Another one is eating out a lot. And why is because seed oils and, again, excessive sugar can be a massive, massive issue here. Poor liver function, a huge contributor towards inflammation. Nutritional deficiency, for example, magnesium. When the body is low on magnesium, magnesium is involved in so many enzymatic productions, you guys, that when you're low on magnesium, the body is like, I need to just distribute a bit of that magnesium into all these different processes just to function. but it causes a lot of stress in the body, and that releases cortisol. Cortisol is highly inflammatory. Chronic digestive issues, so like if you have IBS, if you're constantly constipated, and constipation, by the way, do I have that on the list? I don't. And actually, I don't. And I released a video just, I don't know if you guys saw on social media, just being totally transparent. I've been constipated for the past, when I filmed it. So this was a few days ago. I resolved it. But I got constipated because I was eating dairy, and I got lazy with supplements, and I wasn't taking my magnesium. So boom, for 2 days, I couldn't poop. Not good. Okay. You're recycling all those toxins back into the body. So really bad idea if you want to keep your inflammation at bay. So chronic digestive issues, why? Because that constipation, acid reflux, your just poor digestion, like you can feel it, right? You can feel it, like something is just not moving. Things are stuck there. The lack of the digestive fire, right, is all of that can be hugely contributing towards inflammation. Why? Because your digestion is struggling. So then it releases additional cortisol again. Cortisol is inflammatory. I hope this is all making sense to you and closing the loop. This is the reason why in our our inflammation support kit, we have digestive enzymes in there, because I have found that so many women are experiencing such poor digestion and have a deficiency in our digestive fire, if you will. Then those digestive enzymes can make a huge difference between like things just sitting there, you seeing poop in your stool, and like things are just moving along, and you feeling way, way better. Of course, excessive intake of omega-6 compared to omega-3. So, if you're eating out a lot, if you're eating a lot of processed foods, that's all of that is coming from there. Infections. So infections from, it could be bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic. And that's one of the things that was happening with me. I had parasites like some time ago, like during the shooting of the book that you saw my photo where I was like really puffy. I was also dealing with parasites at that point. Insulin resistance, I already talked about that. And then, the other one I want to talk about is mold. So, I really, I would have never guessed it was mold, because and don't assume mold is right away, unless you've been exposed, you lived in a house that was full of mold, right? And you've crossed off all these other things off your list before you go investigate mold, because it can be quite expensive to do the testing. So let me just tell you a little bit about my quick story about mold. So last summer, I was in Idaho and I got really sick. And I got sick right after drinking beer. And mind you, I'm not much of a drinker. So I'll have like 1 or 2 beers here and there. And maybe like after a week of doing that, maybe 4 or 5 times, I suddenly found myself to be having incredible pain in my joints. I couldn't bend my knee. My legs swelled up. I was having low-grade fever, brain fog. I was just like, whoa, I'm a mess. What's going on here? So I happened to meet an incredible doctor in Boise, and he treated me. And we didn't have the time for testing, so he did muscle testing. And here's the thing, you guys, like some of you may say, well, muscle testing is not real science. And I agree. Like it's, I would not, like, I never ask him like, hey, doc, like, where's the science behind muscle testing, right? But because we just didn't know what the heck was going on, he basically did muscle testing and mold came up, right? So I was like, that's interesting. So when I went back to Boulder, when I got back to Boulder, first thing I did was order the test. And the one that I used was, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting right now. Let me post that in the comments later. And we're going to be talking about it tomorrow anyway. And the mold came out through the roof. And so that was super confirming. So, I think a couple of lessons here. Number one is, things like muscle testing, or, the liver line that I talk about. Like a couple of weeks ago, I released this video about the liver line, and some of you are like, where's the science behind it, right? My answer to this is that it's just yet another data point for you, right? Like, don't be in denial about things. Like, if you are having a deep line here and you also showing a lot of symptoms of struggling liver, then maybe it's time for you to consider, supporting your liver a little bit more, okay? If you're feeling fantastic, but you have this line, then I'll say screw it. Like, doesn't matter, right? So for me, muscle testing is, I see it yet another data point and something that maybe helps me investigate, go further. And thank goodness I did, because ever since I've done the mold protocol, not only did I lose all that weight that I showed you, I released. I don't want to say the word lose weight. I released a lot of that weight. I just felt like it just went away. It melted away, and it has really helped me with just my overall immune system. Inflammations come down tremendously. So if you, anyway, stay tuned for the mold for tomorrow, for next week. I think you're gonna find it really interesting. Okay, microbial imbalances in the gut. So your microbiome, so dysbiosis, right? And then correcting that with the use of probiotics, the right kind of foods. Chronic and allergens. So if you are constantly, exposed to like a lot of pollen, a lot of pet dander, certain foods, like if you know you're allergic to something, just stay away from it, right? At least temporarily. And by the way, your allergies will improve as your inflammation comes down, as your body calms down, your whole immune system stops being so overreactive. You will see an improvement. That's why I say work on your allergies now, not in spring, right? Because that's when you're gonna be give yourself like 2 months or so to do the things that we're going to talk about, so that you are prepared for the allergy season and not respond as crazy as maybe you used to in the past. Of course, smoking and secondhand exposure to smoke, alcohol consumption. And you guys, especially for women, there is so much of research. I just last weekend I did an endocrine conference, and it was just astounding how much research there was. Always like how much women, we get so much more impacted by alcohol in a negative way compared to men. I don't know whether it's because our livers are smaller or whatever that is. So just be really, really conscious of that. Excessive body fat. So remember that when you carry that additional weight, your fat cells are producing additional estrogen. Literally, the visceral fat becomes an endocrine organ. You're producing additional estrogen, and that in itself can be inflammatory when it's too much. Lack of exercise or physical activity, chronic sleep deprivation, hormonal imbalances, certain medications like NSAIDs, antibiotics, genetic predispositions, which is very rare. And the last one, I don't know why I put it as the last one, because it really should be one of the first ones. It will be stress. Okay, so let's not minimize it anyway, just because it's the last one. But it's also like one that I feel like people are like, okay, whatever, who doesn't have stress? It's how you deal with stress that's gonna make a big difference. Okay, so has this helped you just to kind of see the whole spectrum of how many causes of inflammation are there? And also remember that one person is gonna be affected by mold, for example, in a different way than another person. Someone who doesn't clear mold very easily, like probably that's going to be me, will be affected by it a lot more than someone maybe who doesn't have a problem with mold. And by the way, I just want to mention here about my own mold experience is that I was like, where the heck did I get that from? Turns out Boulder had a major flood 12 years ago, and the guy I bought the house from had no idea, because he would have disclosed it to me. But the owner before him basically did a nice paint job where the places in the house that were submerged in the water and never properly cleaned, including a crawl space, and that was just like a petri dish of mold, all of that was painted over. So when you're having an inspection for mold, we're going to talk about that next week. Make sure the guy or the girl really knows what they're doing. So a little just heads up here. I was horrified to see when I got the report. It was scary. Okay. So questions. Let's take a look at questions, and then we're going to over to solutions. I think I've already, made this hopefully quite easy for you to get it. Like once you know where is your inflammation coming from, right? Like you obviously want to cut this out as much as you can. But there's a few other things I want to talk about that we can also do to help ourselves. Jen, do we have any good questions from here? Could you address hormone-related breast cancer, like triple negative breast cancer? No, so let's focus on inflammation today. So no. Anything else? Okay, can you send a different magnesium cycle supplements? I'm only taking magnesium glycinate, chronic pain with neuralgia, high inflammatory markers. So Yeah, you can cycle supplements like magnesium for sure. Salas Roxanne. So I'm assuming your name is Roxanne. My question for you would be, we oftentimes would go kind of like, oh, what's the one supplement that I can take for inflammation, right? And I will be the first person to tell you, even though we manufacture supplements, that supplements alone, when your diet isn't dialed in, when your sleep isn't dialed in, are not going to be as effective. The supplements really shine and produce incredible results when you combine them with a highly anti-inflammatory diet, a really nice sleep routine, you're moving your body. Of course, you can be on the beach just like me. Okay, I'm just joking. Not everybody. That's, just creating your own little heaven, and and anti, and that distress kind of an environment. That's really what's gonna help. So my question for you is, what else have you done apart from magnesium? Why don't we do this one here? Can we post the liver cleanse supplements? So yeah, so let's talk about. So if you go to our website, wellena.com, it's in the links. Maybe Jen, just let's post our website, wellena.com. It's we have supplements organized by condition, so you can see there, like for liver support, we have a couple of supplements that can really help, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. So we mentioned, actually, let me go over to Instagram first and then see what questions we're getting there. Yeah, so this recording will be saved, and I will post it. So Fit and Pause is saying about the mold protocol, and it's for individuals. Yes, it is. So we will talk about that, and Beth has some resources for you too, because every mold needs different treatment, and so mine is there's certain baseline supplements that are helping any mold exposure, and then the other ones are very specific to the species that I'm having. So yes. Let's help with the liver. How do you do that? Okay, so let's talk about, did you move out of the house? I did not, because it all happened in winter, and I just, but what I did do is I had it fumigated. So the fumigation actually, and I retested it afterwards, and the mold count dropped by 90%. And so it was very livable. So that's a project for the summer, is to remediate the house. OAT test and mycotoxins tests are what I did for mold. That's great. Those are really great ones, and they show all those markers. A lot of you asking about mold, so let's talk about mold next week. I get constipated but feel fine, no pain, no bloating, flat stomach. That's not okay too. That's not okay. You want to be pooping. What type of magnesium do you recommend? So let's talk about that. So let me just mention, we have some supplements, and let me mention a couple of them that would be super helpful. But I also want to please appeal to you to consider changing your diet first, before you in tandem with changing or adding some new supplements. Okay. So when you're on an anti-inflammatory diet, you're starting with that. The couple of really nice things to add is our inflammation support kit. Correct, yeah, contains 3 supplements, and there's the reason for every one of them. Magnesium glycinate, so that's the highest bioavailable magnesium that you can find. You don't want to be doing things like magnesium oxide or things like that. So magnesium, if you are chronically constipated, you want to do glycinate in the morning and then citrate at night, magnesium citrate at night. That will help you with moving your bowels. We are soon to release magnesium citrate plus, which also contains a few Ayurvedic herbs that help to calm down digestion, but also helps you evacuate things, okay, without being a laxative. And the third one, the second supplement that we have in the kit is digestive enzymes that I mentioned, because you want to increase your digestive fire in your whole digestion. And you will notice that when you're digesting better, the food is moving faster, a lot more nutrients are getting absorbed out of the food that you're eating. You are far less constipated, you're having a fuller bowel movement, and your whole body, including the endocrine system, needs nutrients as their fuel, right? And when you're not digesting properly, that food doesn't get extracted, or the nutrients are not getting as extracted. So that's why I put in digestive enzymes into the inflammation support kit. And then the third one is we put curcumina which is our curcumin. And no, it's not another curcumin supplement. We actually formulated it. We are buying the curcumin from a company that has a very special extraction method called BCM 95, whatever. And it's basically stays longer in your body, and it's longer and at a higher bioavailability. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not pulling this out of the air. There's actual science that shows that, and they had a number of clinical trials done externally, not themselves, but externally, to validate that. So it's a pretty awesome product. So those are the three things that and by the way, I think we're having a promo right now going on where when you're buying the supplement support kit, you're also getting our renewal cream, which is a really nice cream for the winter, which is one of my favorites if I was in Colorado. So that's that. And other supplements that can be super helpful is obviously omegas. If you have a favorite brand for omega and fish oil and stuff like that, make sure that it's triple filtered, that it's been tested for mercury. It's a pretty dodgy space, the whole essential omegas area. Obviously, we do that. Otherwise, I wouldn't put it in my mouth. And then we also have other things for you in there, like Progest Pure, adding progesterone, like if you're having symptoms of estrogen dominance. By the way, for those of you who you think you might be having estrogen dominance, you can take our quiz. And if you're on Instagram, watching on Instagram, just go to our bio link, our link in the bio, and you will see that under quizzes, there is an estrogen dominance quiz. For those of you who are on other platforms, Jen, why don't we drop in the estrogen dominance quiz? And you will see there if it's something you're struggling with. And if you are, then maybe adding progesterone might actually be really helpful. Progesterone also has another really cool benefit, especially for those of you dealing with allergies. And you might feel like during the allergy season, your estrogen dominance is worse, right? So that's very common. And the reason why that happens is because estrogen can be very inflammatory, and it releases a lot more mast cells, or it makes the mast cells produce even more estrogen, where progesterone is actually antihistamine. So it reduces histamine. So creates a really nice balance. Let's see, what else do we have? Another one that I want to mention is some of you ask about liver support. So if you have limited budgets and you don't want to take too many supplements, I'll just say one supplement to consider for your liver. That's amazing. And that's our daily liver detox. It contains NAC. It contains milk thistle, which is a classical herb for liver detoxification and rejuvenation. It contains ALA and selenium for you to then recycle the glutathione. So it's a really thought through formula that can be just giving you a lot of really nice benefits. Lastly, I want to mention quercetin and nettles. It's another supplement that we have. For those of you who want to prep up for take another step to prevent allergies this season, I mean, take a look at our quercetin and nettles reviews on our website, you guys. Like, people actually write this stuff. And it's basically quercetin is what's found in apples, if it's organic, right? So quercetin is like where the name came from. An apple a day will keep the doctor away, right? So, and then nettles are hugely antihistamine. So we combine those together. They're like really nice and green capsules. And otherwise, you can learn how to make nettle tea. We released the recipe. If you're on our mailing list, we sent out the recipe how to make nettle tea a week ago, I think last Sunday. And one trick here I want to give you is that make sure you don't put hot water on nettles. You want to put it like 80% below boiling, so that you do the math on that. So it's 80 centigrades. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit. I'm so embarrassed. I've lived in the United States for 15 years. I just still don't know what's boiling point in Fahrenheit. Can you guys help me out with this? So I'm so happy to be in Mexico because everything here is in centigrades. And I'm like, oh, thank God, I don't have to convert. It's my language. So funny when you grow up with something, kind of your brain is kind of programmed for that. So anyway, you get the point, 80% below, so that you retain the vitamin C in those nettles. So just like a little tip here on that. Okay, so you've got options. Inflammation support kit. We got a promotion, I think, running till tomorrow from memory, where you're getting the cream for free. You've got essential omegas. You've got daily liver detox for liver support. You have Progest Pure cream to balance out your estrogen progesterone ratio. And then you can also consider quercetin and nettles if you're having a lot of allergies and you want to start doing it now to prevent them coming up this season. Okay, so let's see, Jen, do we have anything on what are your top 5 anti-inflammatory foods? Okay, great. So I would say that's great too that you mentioned that. So I would say the big ones will be all the cruciferous vegetables. So that will be all the cabbages, kales, collard greens, those will be the big ones. The next one would be anything that supports the liver. So I love fiber, and especially flaxseed, because not only is full of omega-3s, but it's also full of fibers. It's going to clean out the colon and move things along. And it's also a phytoestrogen, which means that it raises estrogen a tiny bit, but it also blocks the receptors for dirty estrogen. So it does both functions at the same time. So I would say flaxseed is my second one. Third one, I actually just, yesterday I went shopping and I bought a whole bunch of herbs like basil, cilantro, parsley, thyme, and rosemary. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them off leaves and then disturb it a little bit, and then put olive oil, put them in the blender and make like a pesto without the cheese, right? I might put in some maybe roasted pumpkin seeds or roasted sunflower seeds, just for like a little bit of something more substantial, if you will. And that's going to be like a pesto. Then I love to sprinkle that on top of boring boiled vegetables or a piece of chicken or whatever. So these phytonutrients are just so incredibly powerful. That would be my third food. The fourth food is, believe it or not, actually, I would actually disagree that let's just say salmon. So I would say salmon that is wild caught and not that is raised in confined farm raised. So wild caught salmon. And I would say maybe the fifth one. Why don't we open it up to you guys and tell me what is your favorite one for being an anti-inflammatory food that you would consider highly anti-inflammatory. Okay, and so let me go over. Great question, Amy. Thank you for asking that question, because it's one of the reasons why I love that question is because we often talk about like what to remove, and I think it's also great to talk about what we can add, right, to deal with inflammation. Somebody's asking, is tea or coffee bad for inflammation? So it all depends on a person. And I talked about at the beginning of the video, like if you cut out coffee and you're feeling a lot better, then maybe it's a sign that you are that you might be benefiting out of not doing coffee. And it's also I actually started drinking a little bit of coffee recently because I found a brand that actually doesn't give me all the symptoms. It's called Purity Coffee. And unlike all the other coffees, it's not acidifying. All of them are saying you have no mold. But I found that, okay, let me give you an example of like what happens to me when I drink coffee. And by the way, I have lovely neighbors. And so we were just having a conversation the other day and she said, oh my God, that's me too. So I get like kind of anxious on the inside. My body smells bad. I'm like, hey, you guys, right now, I'm not even using any deodorant, I swear. And I don't smell bad. Not at all. It's just like towards the end of the day, I might just have like, my kind of smell, but it's not like, ooh, Magda, you smell really bad. Nothing. My feet don't smell. And from coffee, I used to get that. My body smells bad. I used to get really mean, like some changes in my brain where I deliberately wanted to be mean to the people who are the closest to me. Or I'd be really angry with my dog. So like anger and meanness. And I would say probably my breath was bad. Okay. So, and this would happen even with organic coffee. So, when a person says, oh, there's all this research showing incredible benefits from drinking coffee, I'll say, hallelujah, if it works for you, fantastic. Didn't work for me until I found Purity Coffee. So that was the only type of coffee that I can drink. What's the website called? Our website is called Welena, and you can find us on our link. Our bio link is right there. We have greetings from Uganda. Oh, hello. How exotic. You're even more exotic than me. Thank you for all the lovely comments. Yes, the call will be saved and now posted to our feed. Okay, so I think we have pretty much. Let's see, Jen, if we have any other questions. Are we good? Yeah, we good. Okay, hey, you guys. So, yeah, so that's. I think that's it for today. Look forward to. Oh yeah, before I forget, we also having a skincare overstock sale going on. So this is actually better than even Black Friday because it's like 50% off. We don't even do 50% off on Black Friday. So if you want to try a skincare line that is super clean, that's food derived, we're using Amla, which is Indian gooseberry, very high in vitamin C. In we have like the cleanser. The cleanser is really to die for. I'm kind of surprised how it's not as like initially popular. People who bought it always end up buying from us over and over again, but like initially there's not that much of interest. I just want to urge you to try it if you are looking for a new cleanser. One of the cool things about the cleanser is it doesn't feel like your face has been stripped of oils. It has it doesn't use beta uh, cocoa betaine, which is what strips the oil off your face. It's super good for people who have very sensitive skins. We get constant reviews from people saying like, oh, I did rosacea, now it's gone. People who have very sensitive skin in winter, like they seem to be doing great with these products. And we're using soap nuts in it, so they are like really the most amazing hypoallergenic way of cleansing your face. So then we also have eye cream, which is super cool, and then night cream, and then one more thing I think is renewal cream for the winter. So you've got those one buy one get one free promo. When you're adding that into your cart, just want to give you a heads up. When you put it into your cart, make sure you put 2 products in, and then you get 1 for free. It's just like a little glitch that we had to work with. Okay. Thanks everyone for being here today, and thank you for your questions and comments. And we'll be talking to Dr. Beth O'Hara next Wednesday about mold. If you're on our mailing list, then you're gonna get an email. So look out for that. And then I will be doing another live on Thursday, our regular live, and we'll figure out what the topic is as we go. All right, thanks everyone, and have a great kind of weekend maybe. All right, bye for now.